Hey everybody, I want to share with you a new video series we're going to start doing with At the Table Worship called Wisdom from the Wine Cellar. Now, we already have a video series called Songs from the Wine Cellar, and there's a promo video that gives the whole revelation of that at the Table Worship YouTube channel. So I encourage you to go there to get more of the revelation behind it. But Songs from the Wine Cellar are mainly songs. This new series is called Wisdom from the Wine Cellar, and the Lord said to begin to release teachings, prophetic insight, and revelation. So that's what we're going to start doing. And me, along with many others, will begin to share these videos, and we're calling it Wisdom from the Wine Cellar. So today I want to start off the teaching out of the book of Judges. Now, many of you are familiar with the book of Judges, but I want to share a little bit more insight, prophetic insight the Lord's been showing me as I've been reading. Now, the book of Judges, there were 12 what we would consider champion deliverers. And these judges were not judges of a court of law, but they were judges who basically they were champion deliverers. They would deliver Israel out of bondage. And Israel, they just continued. They would get free, and then they would go back into bondage and begin to worship pagan gods. And God would send another champion deliverer. They would sin again and start worshiping pagan gods, and it just cycle just continued. But the champion deliverer that I want to focus on is not Samson and Deborah and Gideon and some of those. His name is actually Shamgar, and it's in Judges 3:31. Now, I want to give a little bit of a background of Shamgar. Shamgar was not even an Israelite. Shamgar's father, his name was Anat, and his father was actually named after a pagan god of war. And so the Lord actually used Shamgar, who is not an Israelite, to deliver the Israelites out of bondage, which is pretty amazing. And so in the days of Shamgar, Deborah, in Judges 5:6, she says that the highways were desolate, that people would have to travel the byways because there was such desolation, and you could even travel the highways, probably from fear and the bondage that they were under. And then the Lord comes along and picks a guy named Shamgar. And the amazing thing about Shamgar was that it says that he killed 600 Philistines with just an ox goad. An ox goad. Now, an ox goad was like a stick. It was a cattle prod. And you would use it to kind of prod cattle or oxen. And so here the Lord uses Shamgar with just an ox goad to kill over 600 Philistines. And when I read that, I was just amazed. And the main thing that I got out of that was, it was like, what was in his hand? What was in the hands of Shamgar? He didn't wait for a sword, even though what's ironic is that his name means surprise stranger, but it also can mean sword. So Shamgar's name meant sword, and yet he used an ox goad. So he was the weapon, and the Lord just used whatever was in his hands to defeat the enemy. And I felt like the Lord said that there's many of you, and the Lord is saying, what is in your hands? Even with At the Table Worship, when we began to do this ministry, the Lord continued to speak that to me. He said, what's in your hands? And don't wait. Don't try to get everything perfect. Even with these video series, it's like, just begin to start, what is in your hands? And with me personally, what's in my hands, the Lord said, there's teachings, there's songs, there's revelation, there's instrumental music, there's songs the Lord's going to give me that I'm going to declare through projects and through the songs from the Wine Cellar and through our project At the Table Worship, Lovesick, and the second volume that's coming out. He said, what is in your hands? And begin to do that and let God breathe on what's in your hands. And many of you, I believe, you wait until you have things that are all set up and things are perfect. And the reality is things are never going to be perfect. It's like you're never going to be ready. I even remember people saying it was like when you become a parent. My children now are 24, 22, and 20, which is amazing. And I remember back then it was like I wasn't ready to be a parent. I just began, as we had children, I began to learn how to become a parent. And I asked the Lord to teach me and show me. And so you just have to begin to take a step out. And I was talking to a friend from Scotland. His name is Stephen, and we become friends. And we were talking about this very thing the other day. And we were even talking about Shamgar, of all people. But one thing he said to me that really stood out, he said, Mark, he said, the Lord is not asking you to do more than he's asked you to do. He's not wanting you to do less than what he's asked you to do. He's wanting you to do what he's asked you to do, and that's more than enough. Think about that. The Lord's not asking me to do more than he's asked me to do. He's not asking me to do less. He's asking me just to do what he's asked me to do and to be obedient with that, and that's more than enough. And so I want to encourage you through the life of even Shamgar, that he used an ox goad. He didn't wait until things were right. He just used an ox goad in the power of the Lord, and the Lord brought him victory. And I believe that if you're listening to this video, there are things that you have. There's gifts, there's talents, there's things that he has put in you already. And many of you won't step out because of fear or what people might think. You don't feel like you're ready or prepared. And the Lord is saying, use the ox goad. Use whatever it is. That song that's in you that you're like, well, it doesn't measure up. God's not measuring us. You give out of who you are, because there's the fragrance in you is unique, and no one carries the fragrance of you except you. And I've heard someone say once before that you are a bad imitation of someone else. So if you're trying to be someone else, you're going to be a bad imitation of that. But Shamgar wasn't trying to be anybody else. He was just being himself, and he used what was in his hand of an ox goad, and the Lord brought him victory. And I believe the Lord is going to bring you victory today. I believe there's someone listening to this that you're going to begin to step out in faith. You're going to begin to step and follow the Lord and believe him, because faith pleases him. Do you realize that? If you want to please the Lord, then walk in faith, because the scriptures literally say that faith pleases the Lord. And so anyway, I hope this encourages you today with this teaching out of Judges 3:31. And I'll see you next time with wisdom from the Wine Cellar.